Carolina Panthers OTAs continue to roll on as we get closer and closer to training camp. So for today's exercise, Lewis, and I'll give you the floor first, the Carolina Panthers' newest addition that you're most excited for, but it has to be a player not named Bryce Young. What say you, Luis Fernandez?
Yeah, it feels like talking about anyone that is a quarterback in these kind of situations is always like it's an easy way out.
Cheating?
Yeah, it's cheating. Yeah. And this is when, we're almost at that point in the summer where we're like, all right, let's find a topic. What can we talk about here at the end? So newest additions that are going to make a big difference. I'm going to go on offense, and I'm going to pick wide receiver DJ Chark. And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
So obviously DJ Chark has a lot of potential. He's always been one of these guys. He's a former Pro Bowler. He had that one Pro Bowl year in Jacksonville. He played for a lot of bad teams in Jacksonville. I think that's part of the reason why he may not be as consistent as you would like in something like this, but he's signing a one-year deal, kind of a prove-it deal. He did the same thing with Detroit. And I think the big thing, and he talked a little bit about this to the Panthers on their website. I was reading the article about it. His injury back in 2021, he had an ankle fracture. I think it was fourth game of the season or something like that. It knocked him out for the rest of the year. And he had to get off-season surgery. He had to have surgery, all that stuff, get it taken care of. He goes to the Lions. The way he detailed it in this interview with the Panthers website is he had his body essentially did not react the way doctors expected it to some of the hardware that was used on his ankle during the surgery. So essentially, he dealt with a lot of soreness. He dealt with a lot of just aggravation with the Lions on that ankle, especially when he injured it a little bit further during the season. So he went on IR for a little bit of time. So I don't think that DJ Chark, well, I'm hoping at least, that DJ Chark is not going to deal with a lot of injuries this season. Knock on wood on that one. But he had to have another bit of off-season procedure to clean up the ankle a little bit. But he's finally starting to participate in OTAs. He should be ready to go for training camp. He has some familiarity with the system because it's, offensive coordinator coming from the Rams. Jared Goff played for the Rams. Jared Goff was the quarterback over there for the Lions when DJ Chark was there. And so even with that ankle being not 100%, he still had 30 catches, 502 yards, 3 touchdowns. Says 16.7 yards per catch average. If you were to take that and plant it onto the Panthers, the only other receiver with 20 or more catches that had that average was Terrace Marshall Jr. So, I think he's instantly going to be an explosive part of this offense. 4.34 40 when he came out of college. He's got the height to go high point balls, 6'4". I think DJ Chark, he's one of those veterans that you sign on a one-year deal, and the potential is so tantalizing. And if he can stay healthy, and if that ankle is 100% healed, I think he could be tremendous bang for your buck for the Panthers. That's my guy.
Our listeners and viewers don't know this, Lewis, but neither you or I are doctors. So breaking news here on WRAL Triangle and Two. In all seriousness, though, when DJ Chark was a Pro Bowler in 2019, do you know who the Jags starting quarterback was going into that season?
Was it Blake Bortles? No, it was Gardner Minshew.
Wrong again.
Who was it?
Nick Foles. And he only played 4 games that season. They had signed him to a 4-year deal thinking that he'd be able to get the job done. And clearly that didn't happen, but he was still a Pro Bowler that season. Foles only started 4 games in the 2019 season. I'm blowing your mind a little bit right now.
I think Foles, his career just baffles me. Wait, who started the rest of the season? Who was his quarterback for him?
I'm gonna listen. We need to get IT on the rest of this. Looking at this right now, we'd have to get research on that.
I think it may be Gardner. I think it may be Gardner
in the 2019 season, and the Jags went 6-10 during Chark's Pro Bowl season. But,
hold on. I'm gonna look this up.
But I like it. I thought you might go Adam Thielen, Lewis. In all honesty, I will keep mine on the. Go ahead.
And Adam Thielen to me, I think is the ceiling's a little bit lower. I think he could be consistent, but I think the
Sure.
ceiling's a little bit lower. So I was
Sure.
like, let's just go
We're gonna
crazy.
get research
Okay, you're
on
going.
doing the history of the 2019 Jags. Let me go with my pick really quickly, and we can
Yeah,
circle back to DJ Chark. I'm going to keep it on the offensive side of the ball. Miles Sanders is who I'm going to go with because
I
this
thought
is
you
a
might say that.
division. This is a division where I don't think the quarterback play is going to be very great this upcoming season. Look across the division. Derek Carr is the best quarterback in this division on the outset of the 2023 season of any of the quarterbacks that you're going to play this season because Atlanta, okay, Ritter, I guess, Heineke, the backup. And then I've seen footage from the OTAs with the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Lewis, I'm just going to be polite and say, I just don't know what to expect there. So if the
I'm
quarterback
gonna
play is
be
not going to be
polite.
well, establishing the running game is going to be really important. And you bring in Miles Sanders, who's 26 years old, does not have a lot of wear and tear. Is coming off his best season as a professional, and he has experience of playing smash mouth football with a great Eagles offensive line. Bringing that experience over to a young team, I think, is going to be invaluable. At 26 years old, I think he'll start to enter the prime of his career. And I think he's going to be Bryce Young's best friend this upcoming season because when things get tough, even if there's 8 men in the box, he can still hand it to Miles Sanders. And then out of the backfield, swing passes, okay, things don't develop and break down with your passing routes down the field. Check down, let me get it to my running back and get 5-10 yards, what I can. I think Miles Sanders, this edition, him pairing with Chuba Hubbard as well. You get a two-headed monster in the backfield for the Panthers. This is why I picked Miles Sanders. It's the winning culture he brings to Carolina too. I think that's very invaluable.
So, I did look it up. Gardner Minshew started 12 games in 2019. So
Okay.
Gardner
Okay.
Minshew, there you go.
Well, it
No,
was Foles to start the season, though.
there you
I'm
go,
just
there you go.
yes, yes.
So so Miles Sanders was I had two options prepared because I didn't know which one you were going to pick. And Miles Sanders was my second, so I respect it. But the
Mm,
main reason why I didn't go Miles Sanders, my first one is running backs in general. Like a lot of times it's plug and play. My only major concern with Miles Sanders is so I mean he was fully healthy, played all 17 regular season games last year. The 2
mhm.
years before that, he missed 9 games total. So there are some health issues there, but I do think the Panthers are going to approach their running backs a little bit more by committee,
Yep.
just because I think that's the style that they have had success with as of late, excluding Christian McCaffrey, of course. But for me, my main concern with Miles Sanders is you mentioned the Eagles offensive line. It is that Eagles offensive line. Like how good that Eagles offensive line is. I'm a little bit worried how his play will translate to an offensive line that is not as good. For example, right, you look at some of the advanced stats with running backs last year. He had the most yards before contact. He had 1,200 yards, 1,269 yards running the ground in the regular season, running on the ground of the regular season. About 850 of those, maybe a little bit more, came before contact. So that's my only concern. He still had solid numbers outside of that. He was, I think it was 11th in yards after contact. He was 11th in broken tackles. So he does have that capability.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's going to be as good as we saw last year. I think this might be a case of the Panthers buying a little high on Miles Sanders. One thing I would like to see with Miles Sanders is I'd love to see him incorporated more in the passing game. His rookie year, he had 50 catches, and it was great. He hasn't come close to having 50 catches since then. 20, I think, is what he had last year.
Mhm.
And when you look at how the Panthers have used running backs in the passing game in the past, and just where the NFL is in general, I think that's if the offensive line isn't as good as maybe people may want it to be this year, incorporating Miles Sanders as more of a check down type guy for Bryce Young, I that to me just makes sense. But
Well,
I think it's
he's
solid
demonstrated
pick.
the ability to do it, Lewis. The reason I picked Sanders too, though, is because you're essentially swapping him out with Deontay Foreman, who's now
Mhm.
a member of the Chicago Bears. both Foreman and Hubbard combined for almost 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns after the trade for CMC. So this is where, if your new head coach Frank Reich brings in the offensive prowess that you expect him to as an offensive coach, okay, if the Panthers were able to have success with the running backs that they had last season with an interim but defensive-minded coach in Steve Wilks, you bring in an offensive mind to say, let's figure out creative ways to get him the ball and to make life easy for Bryce Young when he becomes the starting quarterback. So this is where I'm going to rely on, whether it's Frank Reich, whether it's McCown, whether it's some of the offensive minds with the Panthers' new regime. That's where they have to earn their paychecks. And this is why I like this move too, because you still have Hubbard as well in the backfield too. So you get the two-headed monster, keep both guys fresh, feed the hot hand, whoever gets in rhythm. We talk about this with the quarterbacks a lot, but the running game, getting in sync with the running game. And okay, what's a good way to get a young offensive line acclimated? I'm talking Ike Ekwonu up front and company. Let's run the ball and use our body weight play after play after play after play. And yeah, it's meatball. It's not high-flying fantasy football. But come November, December, and January, Lewis, when you want to be winning games and it's cold, it's winter time, late in the season, what teams do you think have success?
Yeah.
So again, it's a more of an old school approach, but you got to use the personnel that you have.
Fair. And Thomas Brown, the Panthers offensive coordinator, like I said, he came from LA with the Rams. So if you want to kind of figure out how a running game, what the running game would look like, I think you can look at what they've done in the past as an example there. And two, one of the things you got to remember, Miles Sanders, right? Jalen Hurts was their best goal line carrier all of last season. The amount of touchdowns that Jalen Hurts essentially vultured from Miles Sanders, and Sanders still finished with 11 rushing touchdowns last year. So I'm curious to see how it all works out. It's just the Panthers offense in general. You look at the pieces and you can talk yourself into the offense taking a step. You really can. But the question is, it's going to be one of those things where do the things translate from paper to the field? And if you have a couple of things go in the right bounce, if the offensive line improves, if Bryce Young transitions very easily, if DJ Chark stays healthy, if Hayden Hurst stays healthy, you have some very interesting pieces.
I think week one, first few weeks of the season might be slow, but this is where you got to rely on your defense. But come week 17, week 18, I expect there to be improvement on the back half of the season. I don't expect to be lighting up the scoreboard week one of the season. That's where you got to rely on your defense to carry its end of the bargain and carry the team a little bit, Lewis.
My light fell.
Well, that's a sign that we need to wrap here on today's WRAL Triangle and Two.